Yes. Okay, so hope that we can continue with the lesson. So we are just right at the beginning. So first I wanted to discuss with you about the objective of the monetary policy. I mentioned already that what is the prime role of the central bank. The key responsibility of the central bank is to issue legal tender, right? But we know that just simply by providing legal tender is not serve the overall purpose of creating expected environment to conduct economic activities of the economy, because we all know that the ultimate objective of overall activities of the central bank is to foster sustainable growth, right? But we know that we are having too much of money in the system or too little money in the system. They both can harm a smooth functioning of the economy, right? So that we have to have an optimal level, that is actually the adequate level, the optimal level of money or the legal tender, the liquidity in the economy. Then otherwise, in case that there are so much of money that it generate high volatile movements, that there can be high volatility in the uh, general price level. That's one of the basic consequence of having too much money in the system, the market. So that is one aspect. In case if you are not going to have enough money in the market, again it is going to impact in a bad manner to the overall the economic activities of a country. So the central bank is entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining the price stability, right? So the price stability is actually, it is a very it is a macroeconomic concept. It basically refers to the general perception of the people with respect to the movement of prices of goods and services in general, in overall. The behavior of prices in the immediate past and also at the present and also the immediate future, these all are associated with our perception. If the prices are increasing very fast at different degrees, right, it actually not a good condition where people cannot they can't find uh, what is the best way to take their decision. It is very difficult to take their economic decisions, right? Because we all know that we have very limited resources with us. So always what that the rational person, what is the objective is to utilize their resources in a very efficient manner. We no need to waste our resources, basically the funds that we have, in case that we are going to consume or going to produce something or invest or whatever, that we need to use that limited resource in a most effective manner where it should give us the expected returns, right? So in case that we cannot predict that what will happen future, whether we can have that expected outcome, so it is disturbing, right? So that's why we need to have price stability. It is a situation of low and stable inflation rate. When there is a low and stable inflation rate, that means there is no hikes and spikes there, so no high volatilities in the general price level, so it does not interfere or the disturb with our decisions, right? So actually those decisions are always related with our consumption, production, investments, and when we have decision, that we have to execute them with the confidence, right? If we have no idea about what will happen in the future, that we have no confidence, because that there is a higher uncertainty is there. So that's why that the central bank has that the power or the legal authority to conduct monetary policy, to control the level of money supply. So the money supply, the level of money supply, why we need to have that the adequate level of or the optimal level of money supply there in the system to maintain the price stability. So that is overall about the monetary policy actually. So that today we are discussing about this matter. So that again, I would like to describe you more about the price stability. So we can define it as a state where that there is a predictable, there are different aspects, right? So that the inflation, it should be low and stable, and also at a predictable level, low, stable, and also to be predictable. And then only it does not disturb economic agents' plans or the decisions. That first they are taking decisions and they are going to execute their plans no accordingly. So it is not going to disturb those economic activities ultimately. So that the idea behind is that we all have to have sense of confidence. It is very important for all of the economic agents to make our day-to-day decisions, because always, as I told you, that always we predict the recent future based on the recent past and also the present situations, and accordingly we are making our decisions. If there are any uncertainty or that uncertainty level is really high, we are not going to take our decision, right? So we just go, what we will do then, we are just going to wait and see, because we don't know what will happen next. So we are not going to execute our plans. We have plan, but we are not going to take that risk and execute our plan. So we are not going to start, right? So in overall, all the people are not going to activate, right? When the uncertainty is really high, that not only a one single person, or we all have different level of different kind of activities that are directly related to the overall economy, the consumption, production, and investments. These all are together ultimately uh, design the overall economic activities, right? If the majority in the society tend to develop such wait and see attitude, and what will happen, right? We can see that nothing will happen. So it will stop the momentum of the ongoing economic activities, right? So as an example, that let's say that we know that when someone is going to start a business, so what the first thing he will do, that he know that he is going to invest some money in the business, right? So that what he first do, that he is going to calculate the, what he'll do, that he needs to have an idea uh, at end of a particular period how much that he can gain from the business. So the net that we normally, how we do in business is we are going to calculate the net present value of the cash flow. So that, you know, sometimes you may have learned about that we are going to calculate the present value of the future net cash flows. That means that in the future, that when you are going to start a business, so during a particular period, there is a cash inflows and outflows in the business, and at the end of that period, that you are going to end up with a sort of cash in your hand, and you are going to calculate the value of that cash at the end of that period, right? The that the present value, the future cash flow, but in term of the present value, right? So there is a very high level of fluctuation in the price levels, so it is very uncertain in which way it will go. So you are not in a position to calculate it. So you don't know what will happen in the future, whether you can meet the expected outcome of running the business. So you don't know whether you are going to end up with the plus or minus, right? So what will happen then? They are not going to start any venture, right? So they are not going to start any economic projects, right? So you may have seen the same thing happen at the time of the pandemic. Many of the people that we cannot predict what will happen in the future, so many of them, they reluctant to start their businesses, right? They are not going to invest in any new activities, right? So that we can see that this, if something happen like that at an aggregate level, it means that all the people are behaving in that manner. So the overall economy is going to be affected in a very bad manner. Yeah. So the other thing is that I discuss about the future cash flow. So even when we are going to buy something, also like that we think what will happen next. If there is a prediction that the prices of kind of a good or a services is going to be increase fast, that we are going to buy it immediately, the panic buying, right? So we are going to start buying it. So we experience the same thing, no? At the first time that we all experienced that the COVID pandemic, that we heard that the whole country is going to be affected. Many other countries also adversely affected. So we heard that India and in China, those are the people who that actually our these are actually we import our consumer goods from these two countries. At the time we heard that these countries are highly affected, what we did, we thought that the prices of those goods will increase in the future. So what we did, we started to buy and we store all the consumer, that all the goods that we need to survive, basically the consumption items, daily basis consumption, so that we wanted to store them. Like that, people react based on their predictions, right? So when there is a low inflation, it is associated with low volatility, right? There is a low volatility. Normally that we know that I think in the class I mentioned earlier also, where time being, in the long term, that we can see there is a upward trend in the overall price level in any country. It is actually a very acceptable and common scenario. So with the growth rate, if a country is growing, the GDP growth, so we can see that there is the general price level is smoothly increasing. When we take that long-term trend, that we can see an upward trend, it is all right. But in the short term or in the mid-term, that if we can see there is a fluctuation, a high fluctuation, high volatilities are there. So it is actually the situation where we cannot expect. As I discussed, that it is the situation where economic agents cannot take their decisions. That is why maintaining price stability is defined as maintaining low and stable inflation rate, right? So when it is low and stable only, it is going to support economic agents to do their economic activities, right? So now you all can understand why the price stability is important and why the central bank needs to maintain the price stability at a low and a stable level. So in the class that already we discussed, I think more than a decade, our country now we are successfully maintained inflation at a mid-single rate, in between 4 to 6, like. So in the current situation also, that we can see that there is no inflationary pressure. So it is actually a positive factor, right? So yes, so okay, so now that you can see here in this slide, what is the overall objective of the monetary policy, right? See here, you can see that the final objective that I said that it is ultimate objective of the central bank is to foster sustainable growth. But to do that, now we see what actually required. Not only just providing legal tender is not sufficient. So one of the key responsibility of the central bank is to maintain the price stability. So it is the objective. To achieve this objective, what we have to do, the maintaining price stability means that maintain low and stable inflation rate, where people can predict or foresee the future and they can take their economic decisions prudently and they can execute, right, in a very certain situation. So the focus of the monetary policy is to maintain the price stability. So how the monetary policy can do it, right? But the central bank is going to do by implementing the monetary policy, right? So either central bank can change the volume of money or the liquidity, the level of money in the system, right? The volume of money, it is called the liquidity, or else the interest rate. What is the interest rate, right? It is again a type of a price for the funds or the money, right? So basically there are three types of prices are there, that all three types of prices are matters for the central bank. Maintaining price stability means not only the price of goods and services in the goods market, but the price of the money is the interest rate, and also the price of the exchange, foreign exchange, it is the exchange rate, right? So these all prices that central bank has to maintain. I said that that at the time that we discuss about the function and the responsibilities, hope that you remember that we discuss about maintaining the domestic price stability, right? And also we discuss about the exchange rate as well, right? External value of money, that we said that. So that three type of price stabilities are there in that sense, right? Here now our focus under the monetary policy is to discuss about how the monetary policy is maintaining the price stability. So the monetary policy is focused on the volume of money, right? The level of money, and also the interest rate, cost of funds, right? So I think that you can understand these concepts when we are going to discuss the other topics under the monetary policy. So first, let's see how the monetary policy is going to influence the overall price stability. So what is the link? How that link? How that link works? So otherwise, that whatever the policies or the tools that we have is not going to uh, influence the overall price level or the inflation. So we have to just first understand how this monetary policy and the price levels are going to link. So we have to have a link, no, otherwise that we have no control. So that we have to first understand that what is money. You all know what is money is, right? So there are different form of monies that we can use, right? So not only the cash, the credit card is also, I think I assume that you you have learned about money and the aspects of money in a different uh, topic or the module. That money represent not only the cash, there are some other forms of money, but we know that the cash is the highest liquidity. It has the most liquidate asset is the cash, and then the checks, and also that credit card is there, debit card is there. Even now today we can use these types of or the forms of money as well, right? These are some electronic money is also there, right? So we can buy goods and services, not only the cash. But anyhow, this represents the power of purchasing of goods and services. The money represents the power of purchasing. So when we have money, we have a power. What the power we have? Not to fight with someone else, but we can buy goods and services. So it is called the purchasing power, right? The act of purchasing represents the demand side of the market, right? Normally in the good markets, let's just think about the good market first, right? That in the good markets that we know how the overall price is determined by the market forces, basically by the demand and the supply side factors, right? Here I didn't show you that graph. Basically the graph is, you know, that the demand function and the supply side funds, demand side and the supply side functions are there. So that the money is actually linked with the demand side, not with the supply side, because that money, it has the purchasing power. When we have the purchasing power, what we'll do, we are going to demand more good and services. Because why? When we have money, normally we feel that we are wealthier. So there is a tendency for us to go and buy things. Normally it happens to most of us, right? At the time that we just receive our the monthly salary or something, that we feel that, oh, we have money, so let's go shopping, let's go and dine outside. Like that, we have that kind of ideas in mind, because we feel that we have money, so we have the purchasing power, so we will. But at the end of the period, what will happen? Then you feel that you have no enough money with you, right? So then what you are going to cut down? Unnecessary expenses, because your purchasing power is now has been reduced, so that that power is not with you anymore. So you're not going to just ask friends to go out and go out for lunch and all. So you have some kind of restrictions there inside you. So because you know that you have limited money with you, right? So likewise, that it actually that the money, when the level of availability, uh, you know, that it represents the purchasing power, so that the demand side of the market. In the market, not only you, the only customer, there are so many people, but all the people act in the same way. When there are more money, they have more purchasing power, so they all going to buy more good and services. That means the overall demand, it is called the aggregate demand, is going to be increased. If people have more money, they have higher purchasing power, So they all going to demand more goods and services. So what will happen to the overall prices in the market? So there is a push for the prices to go up, right? So that's why that money, that we can see that it has a link to the aggregate demand, right? So now we can see where the end of the rope is now, right? See how that monetary policy get the link into the market to control the overall price level. That's what we are finding now. By reducing the availability of money or the liquidity, right? In case that there is a mechanism that we can reduce the availability of money or the liquidity in the hand of the people, what will happen? They feel that they are not that much rich. They have lower purchasing power. So there is a less demand, right? So push the prices down. So the inflation is, there is a, that we can reduce the pressure on inflation, right? So that what is the link in between that monetary policy and aggregate demand, right? So the monetary policy focuses on changes in prices. So that the monetary policy focus is to maintain the overall price level, no? The price stability. So that monetary policy can influence the price level driven by the aggregate demand. That means that by the aggregate demand side, that the monetary policy can influence the overall price level, right? Because it is associated with the money. That monetary policy is actually basically the control of money, level of money in the market. So it is going to influence the aggregate demand, but not the supply side factors. Supply side factors are actually basically based on some long-term factors. So you can see that the overall production level, right? If we can increase the overall production and all that, we can influence the supply side, but it is a long-term phenomena than the demand side. Now that we can see, there is a possibility that the monetary policy to change the overall price level in the country, because by changing the aggregate demand, because of that relationship aggregate demand is having with the availability of money in the market. Therefore, it is directed to manage the aggregate demand to maintain the price stability. That's why that monetary policy can do that, to maintain the price stability by managing the aggregate demand. So, since the change in money supply lead to change in aggregate demand, the monetary policy is considered as a demand management policy. So that's why we call that monetary policy is a demand management policy. Again, I'm telling by monetary policy that we can change the money supply, and then it leads to change the aggregate demand. So that's why we call it demand management policy. Okay. So there are different type of monetary frameworks are there. The monetary targeting is one of the framework. At present, now the central bank is implementing the flexible inflation targeting. Basically, it is based on inflation targeting now, but previously it is more focused on the monetary targets, the monetary policies that we design targeting the monetary aggregates, right? But now the focus is on the inflation targeting, right? So under the monetary policy targeting, basically that we have to use one assumption, that demand for money is not going to change within a period. That is the basic assumption that we have to use under the monetary targeting. I will explain what it is. All those factors remain constant, and change in money supply have immediate impact on inflation. So that we saw that the time that we discuss about the link between the monetary policy and the aggregate demand, right? But in the process that we are going to assume that all other factors, right? All other factors that remain constant. That means that they are not going to change. They are not going to change. They are at the same level. And change in the money supply is only going to have an impact on the inflation. That is what the assumption. So otherwise that we cannot design the policy. That's why that assumption is there. But so many other factors are there other than the money supply, the level of money in the economy. There are some other factors are there influencing the inflation. That's what it says. But here, when it comes to the monetary targeting, that we are going to target something, we are going to set something there with the assumption that the other variables that it is going to be impact on inflation other than the money supply is going to be constant. So that we just assume that money supply is the only variable at a particular time is going to impact on the inflation, right? So other than that, that we know that the demand for money is one of kind of a variables that we have. What it is, change in demand for money affect the aggregate demand negatively. AD is here for the aggregate demand, right? When people demand more cash to hold, they demand less goods and services. What it means, the demand for money is that despite the level of money available in your hand, right, that here we first assume now that when you are having more cash in your hand, that you are tend to buy more, you are going to you feel wealthier and there is a higher purchasing power, we know. But in case that there is a higher demand for money, that means that you are going to keep your money in the wallet, you don't need to spend, that you need to keep it. So in that sense, that it is not going to affect the aggregate demand, right? It is a very simple that you can understand it. Normally, in the previous slide that we discussed, that the money supply, there is a very strong relationship with the aggregate demand. We assume that when the money supply is high or increase, the aggregate demand also will increase because people have more money, they have more purchasing power, so they demand more and more. So the aggregate demand to increase. That's what we talk about, right? But in contrast here, other than that, there are some other variables are there, right? It will not happen the same way. But here we assume that these all other factors are constant. One of these is the demand for money. The demand for money, again I'm telling, when demand for money goes down, right? That means that you are not having that much of a demand for the money. That means that you are willing to spend. You are not going to keep your money with you, right? That you are not going to be that much thrifty. So there is a tendency for you to spend. So then we can see that there is no what is that friction there. So we can see smoothly the relationship between the money supply and the aggregate demand, right? Here the example is when demand for money goes down. When the central bank takes contractionary measures to curtail aggregate demand, it could nullify the effectiveness of monetary policy fully or partially because it induces aggregate demand. What it means? What it means? Either central bank is going to implement some contradictory monetary measures. That means that we are going to we need to get the aggregate demand down. Okay, so we have to cut the money supply, right? But still, right? But at that time, that there is a ratio now, so that we are going to cut the money supply by some percentage. But at the same time, the demand for money also goes down. We don't know at what rate. That people, first they had a higher demand, so even though there are higher money supply was there, that there was a higher demand for money, so they didn't have that feeling to spend more money. But here, in contrast, that central bank cut the money supply, but at the same time, people they have that their demand for money goes down. That means that they willing to spend. So by cutting the money supply, the objective of the central bank is to take down the aggregate demand. But it is not going to happen, because at the same time that the demand for money also goes down. So people are not going to keep money. Even though there are less amount of money in hand, they are going to spend. So the expected outcome of the central bank is not will happen. So it will not give the same results or the same outcome as the way that central bank expected. So that's why these kind of things can happen in real. But here, under the monetary targeting policy framework, it assumes that basically the demand for money, so it remains at the same rate. It is not going to change during the period, right? So it is assumed that demand for money remains fairly constant, at least in the short term. So the monetary policy does not deliver immediate result, but with time lags. It is another aspect that we have to discuss later on at the time that we are going to discuss about the monetary the policy transmission mechanism. That once we are going to implement the monetary policy in order to reduce the overall price level, right? But by getting down the aggregate level of demand, but it is not going to happen at once. It takes some times to transmit to the economy. Yeah, we are going to discuss the way that it is going to transmit to the economy, that you can see that at the same time that central bank is going to implement the monetary policy, we cannot expect that the same time all the economic activities are going to respond and the overall price is going down. So that's why as we discussed, I think the last time that we discussed about that the roadmap of the central bank. So what the central bank what's the central bank objective is now to under the monetary policy framework to maintain the price the overall price level or the inflation at a mid-single rate. So that we have set our inflation target, right, from the median short term to the medium term, that it is there. So that is what the expectation, right? So accordingly, the central bank is setting the monetary policy, right? So over time that the monetary policy should facilitate to maintain that objective, that maintaining the price stability at that level. So, okay, now see here the other that we are discussing about the type of monetary policy frameworks. So other than the monetary targeting framework, the next one is the inflation targeting. So in the monetary targeting level of money supply, we use it as the intermediate target to achieve price stability. You saw that here, that I told you, no, that here that the intermediate target is to that it is in actually the middle, that money supply is at the middle as the intermediate target to achieve the price stability. So in the inflation targeting, it is a model-based framework which targets a specific rate of inflation announced in advance, as I discussed. while ago I explained, by the roadmap of the central bank that we announced that the central bank is to maintain the inflation at this rate. So the target is to maintain the inflation at that rate, at that level. Okay. So the monetary policy stance is driven by the target inflation rate rather than the target rate of monetary growth. So now the monetary policy is targeting, or that is that that monetary policy, the time to time that monetary policy measures are taking to maintain that inflation targets rather than the level of money supply in the economy, right? So there are some reasons behind that for this transmission from the monetary targeting framework to inflation targeting, right? As in one example, now that we know that there are some credit cards, and also sometimes that level of money that with the new innovation and all, that it is very difficult to sometimes to predict the level of money supply. So there are different kind of form of money. So that is one of the reason many central banks that they criticize that monetary targeting framework, because it sets the level of money supply as the intermediate target, but most of the cases that they cannot meet those targets. So that's why that inflation targeting is now becoming more famous in many countries, and the central bank also now we are moving to that the inflation targeting framework. The flexible inflation targeting is that flexible inflation targeting framework is concerned about both inflation and output compared to a strict inflation targeting framework. Here actually that central bank is also like that, not only the inflation but also the overall output level, right? So because as I mentioned that the ultimate objective is to the foster sustainable growth. The one of the basic component there is the level of output of the country. So at the same time, meeting the objective of maintain the price stability, so we have to support the central bank. The ultimate objective is to support the sustainable economic growth of the country. So that we can see that under the flexible inflation targeting, that in that framework, that restrict inflation targeting framework is there, but the concern is about not only about the inflation but also about the output as well. It focuses on minimizing deviations of projected inflation rate, right? So that there is a target. So, but we know that we always cannot hit the targets, but that it is the target. That means the target. So that actual level of inflation and the target level of inflation, there can be some deviation, but by implementing the monetary policy, the target is to minimize that deviation. Yeah, we can drive the process towards that target level of inflation, and also the aggregate output. Always that there is a potential level of output, but always we know that in our case that we are highly at a low level of the potential level of output. So we know that as a country that we know that our potential level is really high, but in recent years that we are experiencing a very low level of growth rates. So that we know that our product that at the beginning of the year normally we have some predictions for the output level as well. So in the long term plan is there, or the projected level of output is there. The objective is to drive the economy towards that potential level, the inflation is one of the macroeconomic variable that can support the economy to run or drive towards that ultimate objective, to increase the growth, right? So that these two targets are there under the flexible inflation targeting, right? So these are actually the monetary policy frameworks. Some countries still they are having monetary targeting frameworks, but the Central Bank of Sri Lanka now that we have successfully upgrading our monetary policy framework from monetary targeting to the inflation targeting framework. Okay, so under the monetary policy that we can see that there are different instruments at the disposal of the central bank. So these instruments are considered as conventional monetary policy, right? So then in that sense that you can see that there are some unconventional monetary policies as well. So I'm not going to describe or explain you what are the unconventional monetary policy in this lecture, but in another lecture that we are going to discuss about new trends of central banking, and also we are going to discuss about some kind of challenges the central banks have in the world because of different of crisis. Now we know that the whole world is facing that health crisis, the pandemic. But other than that, we saw in the recent past there are different type of financial crises were there. So accordingly, time to time we can see that the conventional monetary policy framework, so the policy instruments was they were not adequate enough for the central banks to support such situations. So in order to boost economies, that they had to use some unconventionally policy measures. So we are going to discuss those the policy measures in another lecture. Okay, under the conventional monetary policy instruments that in Sri Lanka also that we can basically see the instruments that we have, right? Here that the nature of these instruments are quantitative and qualitative. The quantitative means that we can measure the impact, or that these are basically these instruments are variable that we can measure, right? These are the quantitative instruments. That some instruments are there that they are qualitative. These kind of measures that we cannot measure is moral suasion. So it has a quality aspects rather than the quantitative aspects. But here under the quantitative aspects that we can measure those variables, as also that we can have clearly see the impact as well, right? And also that these instruments, that when we are using these instruments, that the focus of these instruments are different. You can see that as an example under the quantitative instruments, that basically we have three instruments from open market operation. We are going to discuss about them one by one. Open market operations, policy interest rate and statutory reserve ratio, those are quantitative instruments. But the statutory reserve ratio is that it is the instrument that the central bank can control the money multiplier, right? We discuss about the money multiplier. I think it is actually decide the level of money creation, right, by the commercial banks. So by using that statutory reserve ratio, that the central bank can change the money multiplier. And the other two quantitative instruments are the open market operations and the policy interest rates. So by using those instruments, that central bank can change the level of monetary base or the level of money available in the system. And the qualitative thing that the example is the moral suasion, so that it can change or impact on the overall operations of the banking system. So now we are going to discuss about the instruments one by one. The first one is the open market operations, OMO, OMOS, right? So OMOS is the short term for that. So basically, under the open market operation, what the central bank is doing is either buy or sell securities. Right? In the open market operations, we can basically see there are two players are there. So the commercial banks and the primary dealers. These are the two parties are engaged in the open market operations with the central bank. So either central bank can buy securities. The two type of securities are basically there: the government debt securities, treasury bills, and bonds. And also in the open market operation, that the central bank securities are also in use, right? So the central bank can buy or sell securities, right? The time span for most of the open market operation is overnight basis, right? So the overnight basis operations are going on. Transactions take place between I already mentioned that the commercial banks are there and the primary dealers are there, right? If the central bank purchases securities, the domestic assets in the central bank balance sheet increases with corresponding increase in its liabilities in the form of currency in circulation, right? So before going to discuss that, so let's see about the open market operations, right? Then have a closer look, right? So that why the central bank has to intervene in open market operations. Let's say that there is a the open market operations are going to influence the operation in the money market, right? So that central bank, if that central bank that I think we discussed how the central bank monitor the overall operations of the financial system, so that on daily basis central bank monitor the level of liquidity in the market. That sense that central bank can see that there is a higher liquidity in the market, that money supply is high, so that in case that the central bank can see that there is a pressure on the inflation. That means that we know that we have a target level of inflation, that central bank can see that normally that in the current scenario that there is a tendency for the overall price levels to go up. So the inflationary pressure can be there. The rate of inflation can go up, right? Higher than the target level of inflation, because at the beginning that central bank now set the target for the inflation. So in case that central bank can see that there is a pressure for inflation to go up or increase, then what that central bank has to do, as we discussed, right, that we have to lower the pressure on the aggregate demand. So when the aggregate demand is going to be higher and higher, there is a more and more pressure on the price levels. So what we have to do, that we have to reduce reduce the level of money supply in the economy. So in the market, now we have to take in the money, that we have to take or absorb the money inside the central bank, because in the market there are more money. So that's why there is a pressure. So that's why in the future that central bank is going to lose that target level of inflation. So that's why the monetary policy now under the monetary policy, it is a very short-term market, I mean, that policy instrument that central bank has, the open market operation, because it is the overnight basis it is happening. So in the short time, the central bank needs to intervene to the market. This is the one, the instrument it has. The central bank is going to conduct open market operation. In case there are more money, more liquidity in the market, what the central bank has to do, that central bank has to sell securities. When central bank is to sell securities, either it can be government debt securities, treasury bills or bond, or the central bank owned securities. So what will happen, that the commercial banks or the primary dealers, that they are going to buy these securities. In return, the legal tender is coming out of the system to the central bank. So the overall liquidity level or the level of money in the market is reducing, right? So I think in one lesson, that under one session that we discuss about the central bank balance sheet, right? In that lecture that we discuss about that, when that the domestic assets, right? So there are two sides in the central bank balance sheets, that asset sides and the liability side. So now in this case, I describe you a scenario where the central bank is sell securities. So the securities are going out of the central bank. So in turns, the legal tenders are coming inside the central bank. So what will happen? When the central bank is issuing legal tender, I said that the central bank has the sole authority to issue legal tender. So when central bank is going to issue currency, it is a liability of the central bank. So, right, so it is a liability of the central bank. So when that legal tender is coming at the time that central bank sells securities, that the liability of the central bank, the liability side is going to be fall, right? Or also the assets, right? Right. So that the securities and the asset side, so that assets is going to be uh, going outside now, so that it is happening like that. That's what it mentioned here. The domestic assets in the central bank balance sheet, in case that the central bank is going to purchase securities, the other way around, that I first described about the case where the central bank is selling securities at in order to increase the overall level of money supply in the market. But here, in case that central bank thinks that there is a shortage of money in the market, the central bank is purchase securities, right? So domestic asset side in the central bank sheet is increasing with corresponding increase in liabilities in the form of currency in circulation. Because why? That we are going to buy that central bank is going to buy securities from commercial banks and primary dealers, right? In return, that central bank has to pay that currency in circulation, the legal tender. So it is going to, again, that legal tender is going outside from the central bank. So it is the liability, it's going to increase. And the asset also increases. When the volume of liquidity in the market is increased, what will happen? The volume of liquidity in the market is increased, the interest rate decreases. Why? Why? I said that interest is actually the cost of the money. Then when there is a volume of liquidity in the market increase, means that there are more liquidity, more money in the market. So what will happen? The interest rate decreases. Okay. So unless the demand of liquidity increases to match the increased supply, it will happen in a case where there is an increase in liquidity in the market. At the same time, the demand is not going to be increased at the same rate. Interest rate decreases, right? It is like that. Okay, I will make it simple. right? Let's see the price determined in the goods market, right? When there are more and more goods in the market, what will happen to the price? The supply is going to be increased. Now here the volume of liquidity in the market is increased, mean supply of money is increasing. Like the same way in the good market, good and services supply is going to be increases. When the demand is going to be prevail in the same rate, the demand is not going to be increased at the same rate of supply is increasing, what will happen to the price? In the good market also we can see that sometimes we can see, sometimes that harvest time comes. Let's say that there is something that the mango or something. Normally, off season, the price of the mango is really high because the demand is higher than the supply. At the time that we can have the harvest season for the mango, that we know that for the mango the supply is high. As in the same way, volume of liquidity in the market is increased, like the mango is coming to the market more and more. So what will happen to the price of the mango? It will decrease, because why? That demand is it is going to be at the same level now. So what will happen? The first place, that the prices is going to decrease. At the same rate, the supply is going to increase, the demand is not going to increase. So the result is that mango price is coming down. In the same way, when the volume of liquidity in the market is increased, right? So the interest rate can be decreased if the demand for liquidity is not going to increase at the same rate of the increase of supply of money. That's what it says. Okay. So the reversal happen when the central bank sells securities to absorb the market liquidity. So the same thing can happen if there are two sides now in the open market operations. Either central bank can buy securities or sell securities, right? At the time that central bank is going to purchase securities, buy securities, the volume of liquidity in the market is going to increase, and there is a tendency for the interest rate to decrease. The other way around, in case that central bank is going to sell securities, right, the volume of liquidity in the market is going to be decreased, right? There is a tendency for the interest rate to increase, because why? Now the supply is not matching the demand. So the demand is so high. So when demand is high, then the supply, it is a common thing that the price is going to be increased because demand is higher than the supply. So in the same way, due to open market operation, that central bank can influence or change the volume of liquidity in the market. At the same time, in the very short run, it can influence the interest rate in the money market as well. In a very short-term periods, that we can see that interest rate also can be fluctuate, right? So it is that. Here, actually, the open market, the impact of open market on the money market. Here in this graph, you can see, yeah. So that here you can see the market interest rate are there. Here, the y-axis, and the x-axis volume of liquidity is there, right? So depending on the volume of liquidity in the market interest rate is determined by the demand and supply of money, right? So first it was at the market interest rate is there at I0 level, right? So initially the supply is S0, that fund supply to the money market, okay? So the D0 is the demand for funds, right? At that time, if central banks sell securities, right? That means that central bank is going to sell securities, means that absorb some money from the money market, right? So the commercial banks or the primary dealers, that they are going to buy securities from the central bank by against what? The legal tender, the money. So in the money market, that supply, that you can see what will happen, that supply is going to be decreased because of the central bank is selling securities. So the S0, that here you can see the initial S0 level, so you can see that it is shift downward. So what will happen to the market interest rate? Because that demand is not going to be affected in the short run. So what will happen? What will happen? Right? Like that. Okay. So it is the way that it is happening, sell securities. So what will happen? That money is coming inside. Okay. So, okay. So now there is a, okay. So I think that you can you, I hope that you can understand these two phenomena. No, so, sorry. Here the other way around. That I think they should. Should be coming the other way around, I think. No, it is like that. So anyhow, when there is a the level of money supply is going to be decreased here, in case that uh, it was there at in the first case that it was there, I0 level, the volume of liquidity was here. At that time, that interest rate it I0, so here it was. And at the time that central bank is going to sell securities, right? So the central bank is going to absorb some liquidity from the money market. So the supply is going to be decreased. So the money that what will happen when the demand is at the same rate, but the level of money in the market is going to be decreased. So the interest rate is going to be higher, right? It is that this graph is not correct actually. So it is a little bit confusing. So, but anyhow, that when we go there, you can see that here in this sentence, when the volume of liquid in the market increase, that you can see that when that demand is going to be at the same rate, there is a pressure on interest rate to decrease. So it is the overall story. So what we can conclude here is by doing open that, but by conducting open market operations in the short run, that central bank can change the volume of liquidity in the market and also can influence the short-term market interest rates, right? So it is a little bit confused here, but I think that you have to get the overall picture, the way that it works. And then other than the open market operations, that policy interest rates are also there. It is the other monetary policy instrument at the disposal of the central bank. So here you can see that policy interest rates, two type of policy interest rates are there. So that here in the money market, actually, that money market interest rate is determined by the demand and supply of funds, right? So the demand and supply of funds is, this is a bit confusing, so I'm not going to keep it this here. So you can see that this is the basic structure in the money market, where that you can see the market interest rate is determined in the money market by the supply of funds and demand of funds. So it is the basic structure in the money market, right? So in the money market, because of the fund availability, the market interest rate is determined by the demand and supply forces. But under the policy interest rates, right, the interest rates are determined directly by the central bank. No, it is not influenced by the market forces like demand and supply, right? That's why we can see there are two type of policy, the interest rates, interest rates and the market interest rates. So you have to understand what is the difference in between that policy interest rates and the market interest rates. Okay, so as I said, that policy interest rates are predetermined rates by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, right? So, but the market interest rates, hold on a minute. But the market interest rate, these are the rates determined by the demand and supply, or the level of liquidity in the market. When there is more liquidity in the market, right? In the same way that we saw at the time that central bank is going to buy securities, right? So the level of liquidity in the market is, that volume of liquidity in the market is going to be increased. So at the time we discussed that the demand for the liquidity is going to remain at the same level, right? Interest rate is going to be decreased. Likewise, we can say in the market interest rate, the rate is determined by these changes into the volume of the liquidity available in the market, right? But we saw in the under the open market operations that it used to influence the market interest rate by influencing the liquidity situation in the market, right? The directly the open market operation is actually change the volume or the level of money supply available in the market, but by doing so it can influence the market interest rates. That we saw that in this graph as well, right? So here it is the way that central bank can either make available more money here, that curve SOC, that SO curve, but it was confusing the way it was. So I'm going to describe you now how the open market operation, here it says no, the open market operation is used to influence the market interest rates by influencing the liquidity situation in the market. So in case that central bank is going to intervene to the money market operation by doing open market operation and going to sell securities. When the central bank is going to sell securities, that supply is going to increase. The supply is going to increase. Okay, so now first this level of supply is like that. Now it is going to be increased. So now you can see, before central bank is going to sell securities through the open market operation, the volume of liquidity was here. Now it is going to be at here. Yeah, I will show it because it is like that. So the volume of money, the volume of liquidity or the money is now increased, but we can see the demand is at the same level. There is no difference in the level of demand. So what will happen to the interest rate in the money market? Now it will come down to the I2 level. It's like that, right? So it is the way. So this is where that central bank is selling securities. Here this CB sells securities. This is the case here. So in case that central bank is going to buy securities, this curve is going to shift upward from S1 to up here. Then what will happen? That volume of liquidity is going to be decrease in the market, but the demand for liquidity is going to be at the same level. So what will happen? That I is going to be increased. So we can see, because why that I is increased, the volume of liquidity is going to be decreased. The same way that I describe you with the example of the price of the mango, right? It is the way how the open market operations can influence the money market interest rate by changing the volume of liquidity by selling or buying securities by the central bank. I think now it is clear for you all. So let's move on. Then what is the policy interest rate? Why the central bank needs that instruments too? If the central bank can change the market interest rates here by doing this operation, so why it needs the policy interest rates? So let's see why it is. Okay. Okay. So policy interest rates are, as I described you already, that policy interest rates are directly set by the central bank. Okay, to influence the market interest rates. So we can see there are three type of policy rates are there: a standing deposit facility rates, and standing lending facility rates, and hold on a minute. That you can see you can see the presentation now, I think. Okay, so okay, from where you couldn't hear me, can anyone tell me? Here, I think. So I think here, right here, that I told you that there are three type of policy interest rates are there: standing deposit facility rates, standing lending facility rates, and the bank rates. Okay, can you all hear me now clearly? Hope so. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to continue. So now you can see that okay, I'm going to explain this slide again. So under the policy interest rate, there are three type of policy interest rate that we have to discuss. The first one is the a standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate. Before going to discuss about the rates, first I have to introduce you the facilities available for the central bank by the for the commercial banks, right? Those facilities are made available for the commercial bank by the central bank to meet the short-term liquidity requirement of the commercial banks. So two facilities are there called standing deposit facility and also standing lending facility. So we know that daily basis, that at the end of the day, when they end up with their operations, that they know, the commercial bank, what is their liquidity position, right? Either it can be a surplus or a deficit. So in case that there is a surplus, what they can do, they can no need to keep it idle, right? It is not giving any return to them now. So what they can do is they can lend that access to another commercial bank in the money market, right? And they can have some return. That is the money market interest rate that we saw, no? That the graph you saw that, okay? So in the same way, if there is a deficit, what they have to do? They have to borrow. Either they can borrow from the money market, go to the money market and borrow from a commercial bank, or even they can come to the central bank and borrow from the central bank. Okay, so but these things are kept happening overnight basis, right? At the end of the day, either the liquidity position can be positive or negative, surplus or deficits. So accordingly, that they are going to interact in the money market, or either they can come to the central bank to manage with their liquidity positions, right? So in case that a bank is having a deficit, in order to have the facility, the lending facility from the central bank, definitely they have to have short-term securities, right? Short-term securities acceptable to the central bank. Either it can be the government securities or the central bank owned securities, that they have to have those securities. That means the assets, right? So they should have some assets, and against these assets, so they can borrow. These assets are going to be a collateral, act as a collateral for them to have fund from the central bank. So with respect to these two facilities, there are rates, interest rates set by the central bank. These are actually the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate. These two rates are associated with these two facilities, right? As discussed above. So that when the commercial bank is have access, so if they are not going to lend that access liquidity in the money market, so they are coming to the central bank at the standard deposit facility rate, that they can park the money over time basis with the central bank, so that they can have that return, that the return is that rate, right? So the same way, in case that they are having a deficit, if they can see that in the market, the money market, if the rate is higher than the lending facility rate set by the central bank, definitely the commercial bank is coming to the central bank to borrow money, because that market at that time, that this is happening overnight basis in the open market operations between the commercial bank and the primary dealers, as we discussed under the open market operations. So in the lending, that they can say that interest rate determined in the open market that in the money market is higher than the lending facility rate set by the central bank, definitely commercial banks are coming to the central bank to borrow money at that lower rate. But that requirement is, you now know, that they should have securities acceptable to the central bank to use as collateral to borrow money. These two rates form a corridor of interest rate. There are two rates now, right? So the deposits rate and the lending rate is always at the top, and the deposit rate facility rate is at the bottom. You know that, right? So normally we know that, no, the lending rate for a commercial bank or the central bank also, the lending rate is higher than the deposit facility rates. Yeah, that the central bank is going to pay a rate to the commercial bank when they park access liquidity in the central bank, but that rate is lower than the rate that the central bank lend to the deficit commercial bank. Okay, so that you can see that these two rates, it forms a corridor. These two rates form a corridor of interest rate. So this corridor helps the central bank to stabilize the function of the short-term market interest rate and implement its monetary policy stance. So now we are going to discuss these are the policy interest rates, no? Now, I told you at the beginning how these policy interest rates are going to help maintain the policy, monetary policy stance of the central bank. So these two corridors help the central bank to stabilize the fluctuation on the short-term money market interest rate. In the money market that we saw that based on the volume of supply of money and demand of money, that money market interest rate is determined, right? But by setting the policy interest rates by the central bank, this corridor can influence that short-term market interest rates, right? So now we are going to see how it is happening. So here you can see interest rate corridor and the interest rate stability. So in your left side that you can see, it is the money market, right? So here in your right side that you can see the interest rate corridor set by the central bank by giving predetermined a standard lending facility rate. At present it is 5.5% and the standard deposit facility rate now it is 4.5%. So within these two interest rates, the money market interest rate should be fluctuated. The money market rates cannot go beyond these boundaries. I will tell why. I will explain how it works, right? So I said that there are two options for commercial banks to meet their short-term liquidity requirements. In case that there is a surplus, right? There is a surplus, that what they are going to do? What they are going to do? They are going to, they have a surplus, no? So either they can go to the money market here in the left side story, right? So they can come to the money market and lend at a particular rate, right? So, right here, if that lending rate in the money market is higher, that money market rate is the rate that here, in the first case, it is I0 here, right? So I0 is the money market, that in the first place that it is the I0, in the money market the interest rate is, right? So in the money market, if the rate is I0, right, it is the one option that the commercial bank, right, to meet their short-term liquidity management. In case that they have surplus, either they can lend at that rate to another commercial bank at this rate, right? But alternatively, they have the option there now with the central bank. In case that they are going to deposit it with the central bank, right, what is the rate that they can have? A standing deposit facility rates, 4.5. But you can see here, it is less than the I0. So what do you think? Any rational commercial bank is not going to park the money with the central bank because that the standing deficit facility rate is lower than the money market rate. So they are not going to park that their access liquidity with the central bank, but instead that they can lend it to another commercial bank at a higher rate, right? Okay, so it is the case. Okay, now let's say what if happen if a commercial bank has a deficit. So they can come and borrow at a rate in the market, money market. It is I0 again, so they can borrow. So from another commercial bank, right? So it is at that rate. So in case that they are going to have that facility, they have to have the funds from the central bank based on the securities that they have as collateral. So it is the rate 5.5, right? It is a higher rate than the money market. So they are not coming to borrow at a higher rate. So they are going to borrow from the money market. Then why there is a set rates here? In case there is a higher demand than the supply, there are few excess bank, but there are more deficits bank. In case that demand for liquidity is higher than the supply, in case, you know what will happen in the market, no? As we discussed earlier, that interest rates is going to be higher and higher, right? Because that demand is, you can see here, DL1. So the demand is higher. Then now more and more deficits banks are here. So, but the volume of liquidity is, it is limited because there are few excess banks here. The supply is yet at the SL0 level. So what will happen? Now the demand is higher than the supply. So the money market interest rate is going to hit up there, I1 level. So what will happen? Do you think that all the banks are going to borrow at that rate? But normally that lending banks, they would love to lend their money at that higher rate, right? But the deficits banks, there is an option for them, alternative they are no. So they are not going to borrow at that rate in the money market. Instead, they are coming to the central bank. If they have the collaterals, they are going to the central bank and borrow at a lower rate. It is 5% 5. So the demand is going to be decreased in the money market because now there are no more demand. So most of the banks are now leaving the money market and going towards the central bank. So what will happen? That demand is going to be decreased. So likewise, by setting this deficit and the lending rate, that the central bank can influence the money market interest rate. Let's see the other case, that there are so many banks are having excess. So the supply is higher than the demand. So it tends to lower the rate, interest rate, money market interest rate. So it is coming down to the I2 level. But at that level, what will happen? No bank is willing to lend their money at that rate, right? So instead of lending to another bank at a very low level of interest rate like I2, they can easily move into the alternative option where they can park their excess cash with the central bank at a SDFR, standing deposit facility rate. It is actually higher than the money market rate I2. So it is 4.5 at present. So now they are moving towards the central bank. So what will happen? The surplus is that there is a very higher supply in the money market. So now you cannot see that supply is there anymore, because that excess banks, then now they have moved to the other option. So likewise, that the money market rates are also going to be corrected accordingly in response to these two interest rates set by the central bank. So that's how the interest rate corridor, or these are the policy interest rates set by the central bank, that they can influence the money market rates. It is in the short run, the money market rates can be fluctuate, but within these two lines, within this corridor only, the market rates are fluctuating. So that's how the central bank can guide the market interest rate, so that to control the market interest rates, right? So it is the way it's happening. So that's why these are called that policy interest rate, and based on the policy interest rates, the money market rates are adjusting. So beyond the corridor of interest rate set by the central bank, there is no way that market can operate, right? So that's how it controls. Okay, so now hope that you can understand, right? So the next policy rate is the bank rate. The bank rate. What is the bank rate? right? So the bank rate is also a policy interest rate predetermined or set by the central bank. Under the function of the central bank, and that in the relevant lecture that we discuss about the function of the central bank as the lender at last resort. Here, it defines it like that. If a commercial bank faces a liquidity problem, right, but unable to raise fund from any source, interbank money market, right, standing lending facility of the central bank or mutual arrangement with any other institutions, right? Basically, why they cannot do that? You can understand why. You can understand. In order to meet their that short-term liquidity shortage, they have to borrow. No? But based on what they have to borrow, they have to have some assets, right, as a collateral. In case that they have no assets, that they are going to fail, right? Their banking operations are they are fail because that they may enable to make a balance between the assets and liabilities, right? So that's what the core reason behind that. So in such a scenario, they cannot even go to the interbank money market operations, right? Overnight basis, these operations are happening now. I said so that the alternative arrangement is there from central bank under the standard lending facility, right? While ago we discussed about that, or any other arrangement, mutual arrangements with any other institution, right? What is the option that they have? They can turn to the central bank, right? Because it is the only rescue available for them, right? So they are coming to the central bank. But now at this point, they have nothing with them, no collateral with them, right? It is not rational for the central bank to lend money at a normal rate. Why? Why? That there is a risk, no? Because in case that they are not going to repay, so what will happen? That they can be the default. So it is not rational for the central bank to lend at the standing lending facility rate. It is actually the rate, interest rate, or the facility given by the central bank for the banks having shortage liquidity problem, but they have collateral. But in case that they have nothing, that is actually their fault because they could not maintain their balance in between the assets and liabilities, so that they have to have a balance no asset and the liabilities, that always they have to have a balance, right? So that it is their fault. So it is not rational for the central bank to lend them at the same rate. So that there is a rate actually, but that rate is higher than the standard lending facility rate. Standard lending facility rates that we know, that lending facility is 5.5 at the moment percent, right? 5.5%. But right, that the bank is failed to maintain their resources in a prudent manner. That's why they are facing this problem of failing. So that's why that bank rate, it is also called the penal rate because it is like a penalty for the bank. It is higher than the standard lending facility rate. Under that facility, that central bank is going to rescue the bank by providing liquidity to that bank, but the rate is higher. The difference between the SLFR, standing lending facility rate, is the bank rate, represent the risk premium. There is a risk because there is no collateral against that borrowing, so that risk premium is there. So now the bank rate is 8.5% and the SLFR is the 5.5. So the difference between is 3%. So it is the risk premium in that facility. It is an extra cost for the bank in terms of a penalty for losing financial discipline of commercial bank. So normally we know that all the commercial banks that they have given instructions to have that disciplines always, that they need to maintain their asset base to meet all the liability requirements, right? So that the liability is there for their customers. So whatever the deposits that the customers that they deposit in the commercial bank, that the commercial bank can't say. So commercial bank has the capacity to repay all the deposits. So in case that they are not going to maintain that discipline by maintaining their overall balance sheet operations, that they are going to fail. So that's why this rate is higher. The bank rate is higher than the standing lending facility rates with the risk premium. Okay, this is the bank rate. So the another instrument is the statutory reserve ratio. It is not an interest rate, it is a ratio, right? It is the ratio set by the central bank. The SRSR is the ratio of deposit that commercial banks are required by statute to maintain with the CB, central bank. It is a statutory reserve requirement, a statutory requirement for the commercial bank to deposit, right, part of their deposits with the commercial bank. It's 2% at the moment. This is a prudent requirement. It is actually, in a one way, it is a prudent requirement to preserve the solvency of a bank to face contingent liquidity requirement, right? Because why? That they have part of their deposits as a statutory requirement with the central bank, so they are not going to lend all the money deposits by the borrowers. So it is a prudent requirement in that case to face any contingent liquidity requirement. So it is good in that way to maintain the solvency, right? Always that commercial banks that they have to think about the solvency. At the same time, they think of the profit. The solvency also should be a matter. So otherwise, that commercial banks that they can make profits by just lending at higher rates, but they have to have some kind of a control in between the balance in the balance sheet, that in between the assets and liabilities, right? Or otherwise, that if there is a maturity mismatch or something happen, that they are liable to pay on demand whatever the customers deposits with them. But in case that one customer is deposited money in a short-term basis, that but the bank is always lending for a long-term basis with a higher rate, that they may not able to meet the customer who deposits money. So at the time that he demand his money, that commercial bank may not able to pay. Happens. So that's why they always have to maintain the solvency. So this statutory reserve ratio is SRR is a cushion to absorb contingent liquidity shocks. Commercial bank can use the balance of deposits after making reservation to meet reserve requirements, right? That they can out of the total deposits, that they have to keep that reserve requirement, right? They have to meet the reserve requirement with the central bank, and then onward that they can do the lendings, right? The ability of commercial banks to offer checking accounts, that we know, that we discuss about the ability of the commercial banks to offer checking accounts or the demand deposits for their customers. That's why the commercial bank is superior than the other the licensed banks. The licensed commercial banks are they have that special ability to offer checking accounts or giving opportunity for their customers to open demand deposits. So what they can do through these checking accounts, that they can extend credits for borrowers, because the overdraft facility is given for their customers, that the customers can issue checks over the balance of their demand deposits accounts. So it is actually a credit creation process. So what means the credit? You know that normally the check that they issue, get that the checking accounts so that they can issue a check. It is actually a liquidity asset, that it is a liquid asset, same like the cash, that it has the liquidity. So it is by using that check that people can demand goods and services. So you can now see and understand what will happen, that other than the money or the legal tender available in the system, if the commercial bank has the possibility to create more and more credit based on their demand deposits or against checking accounts, that there is a pressure on aggregate demand, because that commercial bank is creating money. That credit creation process is there. It is called the bank money, right? So that statutory reserve ratio, it allows central banks to influence the credit creation capacity of commercial banks. So when that statutory reserve ratio is higher, then the commercial bank has to meet that reserve requirement, right? That means that they have to keep more deposits with the central bank, right? So that they cannot facilitate their customers to issue more checking accounts based on that the deposit that they have inside the commercial bank. Only they can give that facility for their customers. So by doing so, that central bank can influence the credit creation capacity of the commercial bank, right? So by that, it can reduce the money available for the bank to support its credit creation process. When the commercial banks has more money available to them too, so based on that money, that they can do the credit creation process. So by decreasing the availability, right, by keeping part of the deposits with the central bank, that central can influence or reduce the credit creation capacity of the commercial bank. So that the central bank can raise the SSR to tighten the monetary policy and lower the SSR if it needs to ease the monetary policy. So at the time that we faced that the pandemic situation, that we need to ease the economy, giving more chance for the commercial bank to help affected businesses and all. So the central bank did was that central bank reduced that SSR requirement. So the commercial bank, that they can give more facilities, especially for the businesses affected by the COVID, so that business people, that they can restart their businesses based on the checks and all. So that's how that central bank can use this SSR to influence the economy or the price stability, because that the credit creation process, again, it is the level of liquidity. It's linked with the level of liquidity in the market, right? So now we know that the level of money or the liquidity in the market, how it related with the aggregate demand, and when the aggregate demand changes, how the price levels changes. So you can understand how it works now. Okay, so the next thing is that actually we have discussed all the quantitative measures, quantitative policy instruments that the central bank has their disposal What are those? The open market operations, right? And the policy interest rates and SRR. Those are the three policy instruments at central bank disposal as the quantitative instruments, right? Let's go back to that slide again and let's see here likewise. So that you can see that statutory reserve ratio, as I said, that it relates with the credit creation process, right? So when available more and more money, the commercial banks can create more and more credits, so that it is expanding the money supply in the economy. It depends on the money multiplier again, how many times that the commercial bank roll it out, the available money with them, right? But it is that. And then by the open market operation, it and the policy interest rate, that it is basically focused on the monetary base, right? The interest rate we discuss about the money market interest rates, right? So how the open market operations influence it, and also the policy interest rate also helps stabilize the money market rates, money market interest rates, right? So the market interest rates and the policy interest rate, we saw the difference, and also we saw by setting policy interest rates how the central bank can stabilize the money market rates. Okay, so now we have to discuss about the last monetary policy instrument, and I think that time is up. So what we can do is that we can leave it for the next session, right? Next session, during the next session, that we can discuss about more about some other monetary policy frameworks as well, right? Going beyond the conventional monetary policies, let's discuss about unconventional monetary policies as well. So I think since the time is up, that we can stop here. So in the next session, that we are going to discuss about the last monetary policy instrument at the disposal of the commercial bank, which is a qualitative instrument. It's a qualitative thing. So from here onward, that we are going to discuss in the next session. Thank you so much for listening. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.